And we are live. Welcome back to the 9th episode of Tiny Table Talk. I'm John.
I'm Taya.
And here at Tiny Table Talk, we talk about all of the things that are related to Aeons of Adventure, our upcoming TTRPG. Our pre-launch Kickstarter page is available below, and all of our social media links are there as well. And so today is a special episode. We're going to go through something that is a little different compared to our usual deep dive streams, which have been covering masteries and skills and stuff like that. So today we're going to go through the races within AoA. Right, so let's swap this right over here. Okay, and so today I'm going to cover the different races that we offer within the basic set of Aeons of Adventure, and these will cover 5 major races, right? So we'll have, well, let me solve to the next slide, easier. We'll be covering the 5 different races within Chorinthia, and Chorinthia is it's kind of like the core setting for the basic set, right? So it's set within the world of Chorinthia, and the basic set comes along with a short adventure. It's a level 1 to 5 adventure that comes along with the core, the basic rules. It's a 64-page adventure, and it's set on the land of Elzelon, which is it's a continent within the world of Chorinthia. And so these 5 races are the playable races that we have at the start of the basic set within the world of Chorinthia, right? And the 5 races here are elves, right? The Deiras, the humans, the claimants, and the Viennans, right? So you can see the 5 different races over there. Hello, Icarus. Well, feel free to catch up the VOD later. He's got his HEMA class at this time. No worries. All right, and so just to give you a little bit more context, is that the 5 races that we have chosen here within the world of Chorinthia it's meant to reflect your common fantasy tropes, but with a little bit of a more Asian or Eastern inspired twist. So you might find them familiar within things like JRPGs, Final Fantasy. If you're familiar with things like the more recent ones are like Fabula Ultima, and the older ones are things like Sword World. More generally Eastern inspired style fantasy compared to what we have in traditionally Dungeons and Dragons, where you have, well, I mean, they're dwarves in JRPGs as well,
Yeah.
but they look a bit different, right? They're a little bit more gruff, whereas the Asian ones, the Japanese ones, are a little bit smoother, right? And so ours goes very smooth, right? It's almost Final Fantasy style. All right, and so we have the 5 races: elves, Deras, humans, claimants, and Viennas, right? These are also the 5 races that are available as pre-generated characters within the basic set, right? And so on the cover of the box, so in the pre-launch page, you can see on the cover of the box there are 5 different characters on them, along with the main kind of like a Titan colossal monster. And these are pre-generated characters of the 5 different races. All of the stat blocks will be available in the set as well. And we'll also have a one-shot that comes along during the Kickstarter campaign for one of these characters. Right. So without further ado, let's jump into some of the details of these races. Okay, so there's a lot of things going on here, but before we jump into that, right, what are those, like, what are some of the implications of choosing a race within AoA?
So for racial, right, we actually have a very different approach towards like the. So similarly, right, actually they also have skills, but the approach here is much different. The philosophy here is much different. Racial are more utility style in that sense. So we are trying to make it such that every race is not a compulsory like meta pick in that sense. Yeah, you still have certain skills that's like that you look at and it's like useful or you use, but with some like usage or like some clever usage, right? Certain skills might be better. Yeah. So the philosophy here mainly is we want race to not be the meta blocker in that sense. So you're picking the race because it looks nice, first of all. And second of it is like the skills are cool, stuff like that. Yeah. So I think we will see some of the skills later, and we will talk more about that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So to clarify, when we say utility, what we mean is that we don't want to put direct power into races. So if you're familiar with things like orcs in Dungeons and Dragons, right, which is like very notorious for being a power pick, right, versus maybe something like tieflings, they give you things like a base charisma stat or whatnot. So there are no additional attribute modifiers based on your races in AoA. Instead, what you get is you get a utility racial skill. So this is a skill that can be chosen, right? And you might get more than one depending on your level as well. So before we jump right into that, so we'll go through the different skills later. Every race in the basic set comes with 2 options per race, and you can choose between them when you create your character. But on top of that, there are still some basic traits that come along with, playing a race, right? So let's take a look at the very first one, which is the elves. So this will be in alphabetical order, right? So this is not by order or favoritism or anything, right? So okay, looking at the elves. The elves is it's our kind of like extreme take on the elves traditionally found in media. It's a bit more similar to the Fae or like the Celtic like natural spirits. I think you might find them in like Welsh legends as well. So that's one of those things, right? So the elves in Chorinthia, they're generally found around different locuses of natural power, right? So in the land of Chorinthia, there's a lot of different elements that roam the land, and these elementally charged lands, right, spawn, well, monsters lah. Basically, they're known as titans, and they're like colossal monsters, and they are elementals of pure magic, right? And so in these areas where there's like a large focus or a locus of different elemental powers, right, elves will generally center around them, and they will take on this
Energy.
this energy into their being, right? And they start to morph and change based on this element. So you can kind of think of them as like sponges, and wherever they're near, they will take on these features. And these features are not instant. They take many, many years throughout their lives to grow into these things, right? So the description we have here is that they are from the Verdant Wilds of Naraka, which is the Verdant Elf on the right, is the forest guy, and then the auroral waves of the Thea Elves. So we don't have the water elves here. We'll go into that later. And so elves are inexorably drawn to loci of potent terrestrial magics. So terrestrial magics here, we're talking about magics that are from the planet, right? There's a little bit of a distinction between terrestrial and celestial magics, but we won't really cover too much of that here.
I mean, we might talk about it in like
In the skills
mastery.
lah,
Yeah,
in the skill itself, because we do use the term terrestrial magic quite a bit. All right, and so here are some of the traits that you might have as an elf. So these are they're overly generalized, right? But on average, an elf will live up to 140 years. They take on the features of their environment, but they're not born that way. So when they're born, they may look pretty similar to a normal human being with maybe slightly longer years. And as they grow old while they are near these loci of power, they take on these features. So an adventuring elf may look a lot more human, while an elf who stays in the jungle his entire life will look like what you see on the right now, right? And elves mature at a much younger age because they are grown is not the right word. They are raised in a community where there's a lot of a focus on learning how to commune with nature and to take on these like shamanistic tribe roles, right? And so culturally, they live in isolated little tribes and villages near these loci of power, and they develop like a very strong communal bond. So they are fiercely tribal, like almost dangerously so, you could say. Like if a foreigner were to come into their village, they may attack them on the side, right? But they do respect beings who are strong and have a great understanding of terrestrial magic here. It should be terrestrial instead of rather normal magics, right? So elves are the usual height, so 5 to 6 feet, which is like 1.5 meters to about 1.8, 1.9, right? And they typically have very lean builds because they are always in the wild, they're always moving about. They don't over industrialize, right? There might still be like towns and villages and stuff, but then generally you're not going to find like a human city like
these towns are more like like at their outskirts, stuff like that. Yeah,
like you think of them as like let's just say there's like a big jungle, right? Like a jungle that covers like the Amazon rainforest kind of thing, right? And then you have towns and villages that are along the outskirts and maybe some in the heart, but there's no like urban city. So you're not going to find elves in like an urbanized area within Chorinthia normally, right? Unless they are part of another city. So that means that this is no longer an elven city, right? So what 5 to 6 feet represents is that this is a medium creature, right? So if you're familiar with your typical TTRPG stuff, medium creature takes up 1 square, 5 feet by 5 feet, and yeah, all of the typical medium creature stuff, right? Base movement speed of 30 feet. So what that means is a single move action moves you 30 feet, right? In AoA, our movement system is a little bit more extreme compared to your traditional RPGs because we use a stamina point system, right? So every turn you have 2 stamina points, and then at level 3 onwards you have 3 stamina points, and a move action is 1 stamina point. You can choose to move with all 3 of your stamina points, or 2 of your stamina points, or you can choose to attack or use other skills of them. But what this potentially means is that at level 3 onwards you can run like 90 feet in a turn, yeah. If you don't do anything else, right? It's like a dash. Everybody gets a dash action on crack, right? But it makes actions and combat a lot faster and a lot more impactful. Mobility and movement is a lot more impactful, right? And so going on, we have languages. So you'll find the trend here is that every race can speak common because Chorinthia as a world already has the common language is technically the human language, right? And most of the races have learned to trade with each other, and they have taken on the common tongue, right? So you can speak, read, and write common. And Elvish has a general kind of dialect, and then there's an Elven dialect itself, right? So your Elven dialect could be something that is like, oh, because I'm from the forest, I'm from the mountains, I'm from the coast, right? And I'll have a dialect for that tribe, right? So they come with 3 languages, right? I won't go too much as to exactly how Elvish sounds, but you can imagine it's kind of like a sing-song kind of language, and commonly within the world, music and songs, things that are sang by minstrels are written in Elvish, right? It's not a rare language per se. Like most of the languages in AoE are not rare. They are just different, right? And so let's go on to the next part, which is the sub-races, right? So sub-races in AoE, similar to your races, they are mostly they only affect your traits. They don't actually mechanically affect your skills or your stats, right? However, I mean, if for example, like the Verdant Elf right here, right, he has plant-like features. These things could affect your game in a roleplay sense. For example, maybe he has like a branch growing out of his hair. He may pick up a branch and use it, or maybe he has fruits growing up for himself, and he may eat the fruits, right? So these are things that we are leaving it more open-ended, and there's a general design philosophy for all of our races and sub-races. So you might find that they are more they don't have as much of a direct impact in your gameplay, and more so in a roleplay sense rather than a combat mechanical sense, right? However, we do design our racial skills with a hint of like the sub races in mind. So you might see that in the later skills, right? So elven sub races are divided into the places they're from, right? So you have Gale elves, Verdant elves, right? So because they're from the mountains, they're from the forest, then you have things like the Tide elves, which are from the coast, the Plain elves, which are from, plains, and like Sun elves near volcanic areas and stuff like that, right? And so the two most common ones, and this will be the same trend throughout all of the basic set and the races we're covering today, these are the two races that are the most common in the area of the basic set, right? So the basic set takes place in the Thundersteps in Elzalon, and these are the races that are the most commonly viewable there, right? So the first one we'll go through are the Gale Elves, right? So the Gale Elves is the lady on the left, right? Hail from a mountainous region, so places where there's a lot of like wind. You can think of like the Grand Canyon where winds run through the place and it's like wearing off some of the rocks. They have a natural affinity towards air magic. So these are elves that are found in places where there is a focus of air magics in the area, in the land, and you can think of them like Tibetan monks in like our human culture, right? And they live sort of like ascetic lives and are generally introspective, a little bit aloof, right? Of course, these are generalizations. You can always play an elf which is like outrageous or different and whatnot, but these are like culturally, this is what it's like. And even though they're aloof, they're kind of there's like it's kind of like a raging storm going inside of them. So you might get this kind of like blank stare, and then next moment great ferocity, right? So what are the physical features? And these are physical features. They are traits that you will take on when you pick a Gale Elf, and are included inside your appearance and your physical traits, right? Is that their ears are a little shorter compared to the other elves. Their skin is pale. It leans almost towards like a gray or purple, and then they possess like a stone-like, I mean, literally stone-like texture to their skin, right? Some with like pores similar to the rocks that have been worn on by wind. The hair tends towards like grays, purples, light colors, and it's almost like a wind or cloud-like structure. So like their hair may turn into wisps of air at the end, right? Mechanically, no effect, but we'll get to that, right? So moving on to the next thing, which is the Verdant Elves, the guys on the right. So you're from a forested area. Your natural affinities towards nature and life magic. They are typically like very similar to wood elves in Dungeons and Dragons. They are reclusive, they're reserved, or similar to the elves of okay, they're not quite similar to the elves of Lord of the Rings.
No,
It's
mostly wood
more
elves,
like the wood elves.
It's mostly wood elf.
So there's a kind of like a air of reverence to them. They're a little bit mystical, like you can think of them like like the traditional fae spirits, like shamanistic, right? So in within the basic set, there's a land to the northwest of the map. So the basic set comes along with a map of the region of Elzalon, and to the northwest there's a large jungle, so literally like the Amazon rainforest, right? Known as Naraka, and that is like the largest concentration of verdant elves out there, right? And it's a jungle that's full of life and death, right? And so that's where most of them are. And so the physical traits that they have is like they have super long pointed ears and skin that can be like brown or green, almost like plant-like. Some of them, like it could be bark, it could be like the stem of a plant, it could even be skin-like normally, like just normal skin, right? And the hair is typically of a natural color, usually like green and brown, and it can even grow up to become literal plants. And same with like vines and leaves, branches coming out of their head. And their eyes are they can take on the features of like the beasts of the forest. So you can have like cat eyes, ember eyes, and all that kind of stuff, right? But as I mentioned before, this is something that happens only after an elf has stayed in that place for a long period of time, right? This is not something that they just like, oh, they're born, they're like that. No, no, no. They're born, they're more similar to a normal elf, and then like a normal human person with pointy ears, and then they start to pick on these features as they grow within these places, right? And so now we'll move on to what are the mechanical implications of actually picking a race and sub-races and stuff like that, right? So there's not much words here, but if you have seen our masteries, you'll be very familiar with what you're seeing right here, right? So
like just now I mentioned earlier, so similar to what I said earlier, which is all the skills are mostly utility based. I'll have these two racial skills lah. So one of them is tuned to nature, and the other is nature's embrace. The one that we're showing today is attuned to nature lah. And like what you mentioned, we have seen this like table before, and as you can tell lah, so a bit of refresher here is that these two racial skills can be picked at character creation, which is level 1. Yeah, because there's no previous requirement or stuff like that. Yeah.
Yep.
So going to the skills itself, right? The tag here is elf. So
yeah,
it's the
you're an
race.
elf. Yes.
There's no other way.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. So the skill type is racial. This is new. It's new compared to masteries. So
Yes,
this is just a classification here.
Yep. So just to clarify, right, like all skills, pretty much, yeah, all skills within AoA are considered masteries. So as long as you require something, it's kind of like a classification that we've given them, right? So racial skills are also a form of mastery. They are racial mastery, and which also means that in the future, we do plan to release skills that require ranks in your race. So you can think about like being the most elven elf, you know, something like that. Yeah. So there's some clarification on the mastery portion of this.
So this is our first passive skill. Yes, this is our first passive skill that we have shown.
Fully passive.
Correct.
Yep.
So that's why you see for the SP cost is dashed out. Because it's always activated in that sense.
There's no stamina point cost here. Right.
Then follow that is require no mastery beforehand, and the only requirement here is being an elf. Right. So the learning here is a bit different. It's RP, it's racial point cost. It's not mastery point cost. So this point will increase in
by level.
Yes, it will increase in by level, but not within the first 5.
Yes.
Not within basic set. Yeah. So in the future, when we release like maybe 1 to 10 adventure or stuff like that, that's when you see this being used more lah. Yeah. So the actual effect of this skill, attuned to nature, is actually you gain an advantage on any challenge related to terrestrial magic. So just now we mentioned terrestrial magic. So what is it actually? So terrestrial magic is actually just your flame, frost, storm, nature, and necros.
Yep.
Okay. And we have not have you went through any of this?
We have went through flame.
Yeah.
Yes.
Only flame.
Yep.
Right. So in the basic set, you might not even see some of these skills. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you not even see some of the skills.
You will not see.
Yeah, you'll not see
any nature skills.
Nature skill. Yeah. Then storm is not from you anyway. So
I mean, there will be storm challenges.
There will be some skills, but not on the player side.
Yes.
You can't learn storm.
This is any challenge.
Yeah, it is any challenge. Yeah, correct.
Right. So challenges are your typical skill check rolls in TTRPGs where, like, I need to jump across a ravine. Okay, let's make a challenge roll here. So challenge rolls are different from blast rolls in the sense that you get to choose how you want to approach this. And we encourage you to choose how you approach this to determine what you use to roll. So as an elf, if something is like this challenge has some inkling of a relation to terrestrial magics, right? This is where this comes into play, right? So you'll find that these passives are a little bit more open-ended, right? They're not so
straight to the point.
Yeah, they're not so strict.
Rules and written.
Yeah, some of them are.
Yeah.
Some racial utilities are just straight like, you'll see later.
Yeah.
But some of them are also more open-ended, so you get to use them in a more role-playing sense, right?
So, a bit add on here is also, right, because I think we have mentioned sub-races, and for both sub-races, right, you could take either of these skills.
Yeah.
It's not like tied to either the guild or the verdant elves here. Maybe in the future we will have one that is like sub-race dependent, like it requires you to be a certain type of sub-race, but for the basic set currently, all the 2 skills for all 5 classes, all 5 races are not tied to the sub-race and is tied to the main race instead.
Yep. So for now, all races can use either of their racial skills available within the basic set, right? So okay, let's look at attune to nature. So the effect itself, right? What it means is that whenever there's a challenge roll, you gain an advantage. So just to reiterate, in case you're unfamiliar with what a challenge, what an advantage is, right? So Aeons of Adventure is a 2d6 resolution game, right? So you roll 2d6, you add a modifier, and then you add the 2d6 together, and then the sum you use to beat a target number, right? What an advantage means is that you roll an additional d6 and you take the 2 highest dice, right? So you can imagine just as like every challenge roll regarding magic, right? You just have an advantage all the time, right? Which means you always roll 3d6 and take the 2 highest. So naturally, all elves are a little bit better at determining anything related to terrestrial magics, right? And when we talk about terrestrial magics here, we're talking about magics that are abundant in nature, right? Or rather, okay, they are from nature, from the planet, right? So we're talking about anything related to fire magic, frost magic, which includes water, right? Storm magic, which also includes air, right? Nature, which is like all the plants and stuff, and then necros, which is necromancy, right? So death and also kind of life, right? It goes both ways. Yeah. So that is the elves. In the actual rulebook itself, there's a lot more information as to the races, the details of the races, like their lore and their backgrounds and communities and stuff like that. But if we go through that, this stream will be 3 hours, right? So we will kind of like just run through a high level preview of what every single race will be. Okay, so is there anything else you want to add to elves?
Nothing much, Actually, elf is pretty standard in that sense. I think it's one of the more basic race.
Yeah, I would say so. Like, the elves for AoA are just an extreme form of elves, right?
Yeah, they are also very like basic in that there's not much unique.
The concepts are unique, not particularly different.
Yeah, it's if you mention an elf, you think of this. But a bit more like what you mentioned, which is like it's a bit more extreme. But at its root and its base, it's still the same.
They're still kind of nature spirits, they're kind of like wild
long
spirits.
years.
Long years. It's just that we take on like the element of the location, right? So that's the main difference with elves. Okay, so let's go on to our second race. Okay, so this race is wildly different compared to the other one, right? Colors are kind of similar, right? But that's purely a coincidence, right? So the second race we have here are the Deiras, right? And so the Deiras are it's our version of like
demons, not really.
I mean, they might look like tieflings, but I guarantee you they are not tieflings, right? So first things first, there's no tails, right? So boom, Deiras have no tails, right? But Deiras they're different in the sense that they are our to stereotype them, they are kind of like our inbuilt fanatical zealous like race, right? So these are the guys who are your holy warriors. These are the guys who are like your fanatics, your cultists. But there's like a lore reason behind why they are like that, right? So the description we have here is that they are like halls that are filled with holy grandeur. And when we say holy here, they mean anything that is spiritual to them, right? It does not mean light, right? So for example, you may see the lady on the left, that's not very light, right? And so they're bound by their fervent worship of, so radiant light here refers to the right guy, not generally, but and a zealous piety, right? And these are inbuilt into them as a race. It's innate. So the Dairans live their lives of a constant longing for a connection between a higher power in the light that they have that shines within themselves. So, just for a bit of clarification, holy powers within AoA are radiance. So, light it does not refer to radiance. These are not the same thing. Okay? So, going down into... Okay, before I go into the traits. So, Deiras have a few core features that I did not write down here. So, as you may see in their images here, they have horns. The horns look slightly different. You might also notice that they have pointy ears and they are glowing on some parts of their faces, right? So two of the core features for the Dairans are their horns and their markings, which are known as a stigmata, right? So all Dairans are born with horns and some kind of marking upon them, right? And generally, as they grow older, these things will evolve with them, depending on how close they have grown towards this inner divinity that they have an affinity for, right? And this thing changes depending on your race, your sub-race specifically, right? So for example, the lady on the left, she has an affinity for the arcane, and then the guy on the right has an affinity for radiance, right? And so as they grow, if they grow closer to these divinities, these things will grow with them. So your markings cover more of your body, your horns grow bigger or sharper. It could be different depending on the particular Deiran herself or himself, right? So that's just kind of like a high level look at the physical traits of the race, right? So let's go on to the actual traits, right? So just now elves live to 140, right? Deiras don't live so long, right? They live 80 years old. This is pretty similar to like your average human. I think in medieval times, I don't think they lived that long either. Yeah, most of them would die by the time they're 30 or 40. So, in a similar sense, in a fantasy world, if you're adventuring constantly, you're probably going to die earlier. But your life expectancy, if you lived in a town, is 80 for a Deira, right? Culturally, all Deiras are fanatical one way or another, right? It's just that the way their fanaticism shows up is different depending on what their religion is or their core tenets are based on the divinity that they have, right? So one example we have here is that if okay, the Deira on the left, which is a arcane Deira, right? They're from the desert, and then their religion is that they worship a god of war, right? And in that case, the religion is around the god of war, right? And that means that fanatically they would be, well, violent by default because they worship the god of war, right? But this also comes with things like honor and valor and stuff like that, right? So that's what we mean by they are fanatical one way or another. They will always try to embody the values and the symbols of whatever their divinity is. So this does not have to be religion, it's more about their divinity, right? But divinity is usually tied to religion, and you could make an argument for how you would like to twist it, like whether it's a forgotten god or whatnot, but we'll leave that up to your imagination, right? So size-wise, okay, Dairans are very big. So your average adult Dairan is going to be like 1.8, 1.7 to 1.8 plus. Yeah, so you're not going to get short Dairans generally, unless they're kids, right? So they're all a lot larger than the rest of them. They can look lanky, they can be muscular, so their builds can vary, and they lean towards generally stronger builds. So most of them are on the fit side, right? Just by nature of being Dairan. Of course, you can have a fat Dairan, but then your average Dairan is not going to be fat. It's going to be by virtue of them being taller, they are bigger. Yeah.
But mechanically, they are still medium.
Yes, mechanically they're still medium.
They're still medium, so they're not
big enough to become large.
enough to be the next size up. So these are more physical stuff, and visually they're bigger, but the mechanical sense they're still taking medium size lah. Yeah. So 5 feet by 5 feet.
Yep. Yeah. So languages, you can speak, read, and write common, same as the rest of them, and you can also speak Dairic. So Dairic is their common language, right?
So similar to elf, they also move at 30 feet.
Yes. Yeah. So you'll find that most of the races will move at 30 feet. There's an exception, so we'll get to that. So okay, let's take a look at the first one, which is the Dairan sub races. So Dairan sub races are based on the nature of their inner divinity here. So the Magoi gets arcane, and then the Lux get light, right? Manifesting in their horns, in their body markings, which is the stigmata, right? So within the Thunder Steps, these are the two common ones. Okay. Moving on to the Magoi. So as I mentioned just now, they are from the deserts in Western Chorinthia. Their inner divinity leans towards the arcane. They have a much smaller population. So their population is not massive. So generally they're much rarer. And the Lux Deiras don't really like them. That's all I'll leave it at that, right? So what are some of the physical things that they have is that they have long pointed ears. So all the Deiras have pointed ears as well. They have darker skin, similar to kind of like a bluish or purple skin. Like their hair tends towards light colors, cool colors, right? And their eyes are light blue, purple, or white. It glows a little bit. So all the Deiras have a little bit of a glow somewhere on their body. Not extremely practical. You might want to cover that up if you're thinking about designing like a Deira character. If you're like a stealth-based character, you don't want to be showing off your glowing tattoos everywhere, right? Like your Illidan or something. Right. Then the horns of a Magoi Deira are generally slender and pointier compared to their Lux counterparts, and their stigmatas grow violet with like a faint hint of arcane energy, right? So, as mentioned just now, this is something that is dependent on how close this particular Deira is to their inner divinity of arcane magics, right? Okay, so moving on to the next one, which is this side, the Lux. So the Lux are from the Eternum Imperium, which is a theocratic empire. You can think of them kind of like the Roman Empire, the Vatican, right? That's in our world, not in Corinthia, right? And
it runs the same way.
It runs in a similar way. There's a pope, there's a bishop. They have a theocratic leader. And their inner divinity leans towards radiance, right? So you have like light tattoos, big strong horns, right? And there's a cultural disdain in the Lux Deira in general, like the entire race has this disdain for necromancy, right? So culturally they view it as kind of like a desecration of life, right? So long pointed ears, yes, that tends to be their skin tends to be silver or alabaster, right? So there's a bit of a lack of like a flush to them, right? They are more pale and almost like gone, like jaundice looking, right? Of course, you still get a little bit of that pink in, but then it's going to be on a much lower scale compared to humans or compared to the Claymans and the Viennans, right? Their hair color tends towards like white, silvers, and blondes, even blacks, right? And their eyes are golden, brown, and amber. So a lot of that natural kind of like light colors, golden colors. Then the horns of a Lux Deira are often on the thicker side, and their stigmatas glow golden with a hint of radiance, right? One other note that you might notice is that the shapes of their stigmatas are also dependent on their affinity. So like the Magoi ones might have like much sharper shapes, and the Lux ones might be a little bit more curvy. So it's dependent on the element, right? So in the future, perhaps there could be like a shadow one and whatnot, and then the shape, like the style of the shape might be different, might be thicker, might be thinner, might be pointier, right? So that's a factor that we take into account with the different sub-races of a Deira. All right, and so what are the racial skills that a Deira can have?
So, racial skills here, right? I mean, you have said like arcane and like, I mean, in terms of like the sub races, right? They're like arcane focus, radiance focus. But do take note, they don't grant any bonuses, so they're just as it is. So they don't grant you like bonuses if you take like, for example, if in the future like we have like arcane skills or like radiant skill, it doesn't do anything, right? So it also means that as a Lux sub race, you can have like arcane skills. There's nothing that says no.
Yeah.
Right? Law wise, maybe not, but when we are playing a game, you can mix and match, right? Yeah. So just to put it out there, in case anyone is wondering,
these are not strictly these like are either not, or.
Yeah, it's not a strict thing. It's more so. Most of these races that we are doing, right? Actually not mobs. All the races that we're doing, right, are actually suggestions in a way. and not strictly enforced. Correct. Yeah. If we do enforce it, then it'll be a bit weird lah.
However, the skills are designed with these things in mind, so
Correct.
thematically they belong to each other, right? But you can always play like Amagoi Dera and pick Inner Light, or Lux Dera and pick Mana Break. There's nothing stopping you doing that, right?
I mean, yeah, correct. So going to the actual skills itself lah. So you have two similar. So one is Inner Light and one is Mana Break. And here we review like Inner Light lah. So Inner Light is the text instant and Dera. So same, you need to be Dera. It's a racial type skill. Here it costs SP1. Right, so this means it can be. So what that means is actually you can use it in combat as well. So like as part of your move, as part of your player turn action, you can use this skill. Right.
So this doesn't need to be your player turn action.
It's
instant.
This is instant, correct?
Yeah,
but generally you still need stamina lah. Yeah, correct. So I think this is also the first instant skill we have.
Yes, this is the first instant skill that we have. Yeah.
So instant is a new tag in. I mean, in terms of what we're reviewing, correct? Yep. So what that means is, right, this skill can be used at any point of time. So it can be, so for example, like during the player turn, you can immediately use it in while the DM is doing something, right? Like he's about to hit you, you can immediately use it as well.
Yep.
There's nothing that is quote unquote stopping you other than
your SP.
The SP is one, and the requirement.
Yes.
So in the effect, right, there's this is, I think we mentioned it in the previous deep dive. This is also our first once a day usage. Yeah. So that's tracking right there lah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So going to the actual effect, so it's a once a day. You can heal 4 plus level. Yeah, yes, 4 plus level, and it does not consume vitality. I think this is also the first time we are reviewing healing. Is it?
Not
vitality.
Not healing in general, but healing.
Healing for tying to vitality. We have touched healing a bit, which is in companions.
Yes.
But that's not
mending your pets.
But that's not really the same here.
Yeah, not quite the same.
So do you want to actually go into detail here? Because this will take a while.
We'll just touch on it briefly.
So, briefly here will be vitality is a resource similar to HP, where you can't, there is a maximum cap on your healing. So
okay, cap on your healing is not quite the right word.
No,
number of times you can be healed.
Yeah.
Right. So in AoA we have a cap on the number of times you can be healed per day, right? Or per rest actually. And that's your vitality stat. Your vitality stat scales with your vigor. So you higher your vigor or you lower the vigor, the higher your vitality or the lower your vitality. Right. So your baseline vitality is 2, and then it goes up and down with your vigor. Right. So what that means is that, for example, if you have 2 vitality, you can be healed twice with no problems. Once you're at 0 vitality, every time you are healed, you can be healed. But every time you're healed,
something
you
else
take
happens.
a negative effect. Right. Which is yeah, we're not going to cover
that.
That's the whole thing. But just so you know that there's a negative effect if you consume a vitality past 0. Right. So that's what makes one of this inner light a bit different, which is that this is a free heal. There is no downsides to this. Right. Once a day you can use it, you can heal for that amount, and it does not consume your vitality. Right. So this is
which in AoA vitality is it's almost as important or maybe more important than a HP resource in a sense.
Yeah, it's very important.
Because of how quote unquote deadly or how things can escalate very fast here.
Yeah. It's not even like deadly. No, it is deadly. It is very deadly.
Yeah.
Right. So resting does not heal you a lot. You're dependent on healing from external sources most of the time, right? Unless you get a very long rest in a town or something like that.
Almost 99% of healing consumes vitality.
Yes, most healing consumes vitality.
I think this is one of the few ones that doesn't. And I feel like this is one of the systems that we have done quite well. Because vitality itself is because healing, right? So this is actually going a bit off topic but healing is usually very free, and we wanted to change that so we wanted to make it such that healing is actually a tactical response at the tactical action that you actually consider before doing it. So that's going off a bit but
I mean, traditionally, like healing can be either very powerful or very useless, because it's either like when I'm healing, if I don't out heal the damage, the heal was pointless. I could have just done the damage instead. Or healing is so powerful, I'm just
eating the soaking the thing.
stallmating the entire fight, which then becomes frustrating when you're playing the game, right? So then traditionally that has been countered by spell slots and whatnot, right? But we don't want to limit spell slots. We want you to cast as many spells as you can, but we don't want you to heal as much as you can, right? So what we have put here is that this, you can think of this as kind of like spell slots for healing, but instead of you being the you spending your slot to heal someone, it's the recipient that has the problem, right? So irregardless of like how powerful your heals are, if the person can't receive any more heals, they just die, right? Of course, they can also just die normally, right? But that's besides the point.
We're getting really sidetracked, but yeah. So just to reinforce this, this does not consume vitality, which is an important resource that you use for healing, lah. So, and the key points of this is an instant skill as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
So instant, just to count on that a little bit more, our round system goes by one entire round, right? And then within a round there is player's turn, not the player's turn, and then what happens in the scene, right? And so what instant means is that at any point in time between anybody's actions, that whenever you want to, you can just be like, I want to do it now, right? And there are not many instant skills generally, right? Most skills are either reacts or just actions normally. Instant skills are not common because they are very flow breaking, right?
Yeah.
So you can think of this kind of like an emergency, like this, and then you heal, right? Of course, this is just one of their two skills. So yeah, you might know this as like second wind, lay on hands, that kind of thing, that style of skill, right? Just know this is only for yourself. You heal yourself. Yep. Okay. Anything else to add on for the Dayrons?
So Dayrons, compared to the elf, this is more unique. Okay, not really Kairos, but this is more not common in that sense, where it's a bit more like experimental kind of stuff that we actually settled on pretty early on.
Yeah, this one was pretty early.
I think most of the races were set up pretty early on. Like I think you were designing the races. Like the looks as well as like the visual appeals of it.
We had a rough like set of stereotypes we wanted to hit, and we wanted like a demon-esque kind of race, right? The question was, how do we make this demon race not so demon and more appealing to a wider range of audiences, right?
More, how is it, less Western influenced demons in that sense.
I mean, they're still kind of
but
jinns, kind of thing.
It's still kind of jinns, but it's more like humanoid in that sense. Yeah, so I think this was one of the few races that didn't change much though. I think most of the races didn't change at all.
Another way you can look at it, right, is one thing you might notice is that we don't have alignments for the races, right? So all of the races can be good, they can be bad, they can be whatever they want to be, right? The cultures and the cities and the countries may lean a certain way, right? But the races are not inherently tied, right? So like, for example, traditionally, let's just say you play like a demonic tiefling, you have demonic ancestry, you're probably going to have some semblance of it from your parents or whatnot, or like down your lineage, right? But in this case, this is very much so more of like their theocracy or their religion or the affinity they have, which is tied directly to either a god or a spirit of some sort, right? Or whatever higher power is granting them this divinity in the first place, right? So if you were to use this in your own setting, you can change that, right? If you want like a fire god, okay, Fire Dara, right? You want like a ice god, okay, Ice Dara, right? So those are the things that you could consider when you're thinking about Dara as a race, as a template, right? So if you want to homebrew this thing, they are just fanatical cultist guy, but at the same time, like, what does a fanatical cultist guy look like when you take it to the nth degree, right?
And you sprinkle in a bit of like magic.
Yes. If you're familiar with Warcraft, like Lightforge, like Illidan, take that, bring it to the end. Recently there's like War Within and all that stuff, Midnight, like Void Forge. Think about that, like along those lines, right?
Yeah, this was before that.
Yeah, this, by the way, we created this before Midnight at War Within, so
this was so awkward when it came out.
yeah, it's like, oh, that's a convenient coincidence.
Also to add on to Elf, that was so awkward when the Herenia came out.
Yeah. Also, we made it before Hernia, okay? So we didn't know about Hernia, right? Disclaimer. Okay. So now, okay, this is the most. This is going to be a very short slide, a very simple one, but there's some interesting lore tidbits within this. All right. So humans, right? The most common of the 5 races. Humans can be found in every corner of Chorinthia, everywhere. Like there's pretty much no places where humans are not. So like even if you're in an Elven city or a Vienna city, in a Darien city, you're probably gonna find like a human or 2 minimum, right? Unless it's like a very strict small village like the elves. There's a potential that there's no humans, but humans generally try to sneak their way into everything, right? And so humans within the world of Chorinthia are characterized by a few major traits, right? Which is versatility, which is the main one, right? Resilience in hard conditions, heresy. So they are known by heresy. It does not mean they're heretical by nature, but they are known by a heresy, right? And treachery, right? So of the races, the humans are the most treacherous. You could almost look at it in a sense where some of the other races are more honest, you can even put it as naive, but humans are the most capable of treachery, of betrayal, of hurting someone where it really hurts, right? And things like lies and whatnot, right? Which has led to their infamy as heretics. So not gonna dive too deep into it, but a major event happens in the history of Chorinthia where the humans betrays the gods, right? And that's why they are known forever after that point in time as heretics to the other races, especially to the Deiras, as you could have imagined, like all these theocratic nations, and then you have humans betraying the gods, right? So traditionally, you're not going to find humans culturally as priests and whatnot within the world of Chorinthia, right? At least not commonly. They may exist, but it's not going to be widely accepted by many of the other races, right? Except for a few specific religions, right? So, human traits. Humans live up to 100 years, just like normal humans, right? Culture-wise, extremely varied because they're everywhere. They take on the cultures and the morals, and they shape themselves to wherever they best allows them to survive and to succeed, right? But humans are also like very skeptical of other races. They always keep the other races kind of like at an arm's length due to their own nature, right? Because they themselves are familiar with treachery, so they are also afraid of treachery from other races, right? So to put it bluntly, they're the most discriminatory, lah, right? Maybe not openly, but within the human groups and cultures and societies, they do look at them as like, ooh, these guys, right? So base movement speed of 30 standard, still a medium creature, 5 to 6 feet, right? Of course, you can go above 6 feet, but you're probably not going to be below 5 feet. Like maybe maximum like 148 cm. You're not gonna go too much shorter than that, right? Then you can speak, read, and write common, and you see humans, because common is the human language, right? So they get to learn one additional language, right, based on where they're from. So if you lived in a Darien city, you will learn Daric. If you lived in an Elvish city, you will learn Elven, right? If you lived in an Elven tribe's village, you will learn their dialect, right? So humans will pick up whatever based on wherever they're from, right? So humans do not have sub-races within Aeons of Adventure. They are going to be exactly what they look like. You can change them to whatever skin color, whatever hair color, but they're still going to look generally human, right? They're not going to have pointy ears, they're not going to have all that stuff.
No horns.
Yeah, most people know what a human is, right? However, humans have some pretty crazy racial skills. We are going to show the less crazy of the two. I'll keep you in suspense for the other one. It's known as Twist of Fate. All I'll say is that it's if you're familiar with other TTRPGs like D&D and Pathfinder, Twist of Fate is
literally twisting the fate.
It's pretty powerful.
Yeah,
it's pretty powerful. Yeah. It's very impactful. But it's a
it
gambler's
goes both ways
thing.
though.
Yeah, it's a gambler's thing.
Yeah.
if you like to gamble, the humans for you, right? But let's look at the more heroic of the two options, right?
So, I mean, this is a bit counter because previously we mentioned instant is very rare, and then we have a second instant skill.
Yeah. But okay, this has to be instant.
Yeah, this
It's
has
not
to
the
be
same.
instant. It's not the same. So, the skill name is okay. So, a bit going back. So we have two racial skills for the humans. Twist of Fate as well as Unbreakable Spirits lah. So similar to all the others, there is no requirement beforehand, and we'll be revealing an Unbreakable Spirit here lah. So what is it? It's an instant human skill. So instant is, as what I mentioned just now, it can be used at any point of time. Right. So the reasoning is later lah. So as because it's 0, it's quite specifically 0 and not like other skills where it's like it requires 1 or even like the passive where it's at there's no cost. Yeah. Because this is still an action that costs something.
Yep.
Right? But just that the cost is free. Right? Then mastery is human. Requirement being a human as well as like the racial point being like 1. Yeah. So what is it actually? So it's actually instant skill on once a day, similar to the Darian's one.
Yep.
Yeah. Where you can use it once a day. While you're down, you can critically succeed a death saving throw. Death roll.
Yeah,
Sorry.
which is a death saving
Which
throw.
is death saving throw.
Yes.
And regain all your stamina.
Yep.
So this goes back to why is it instant?
Yeah.
It has to be instant because
Yes.
you can't. There's no reaction. There's no. You don't die on your turn anyway.
Yeah.
Unless someone fireball your ass. Then
Then you're dead.
yeah, then you
So-
deserve it.
So okay. Let's look at it from the start. So it's an instant skill. Yes, you can use this whenever you want. However, there's a condition which is once a day while you are down. Right. So what does being down mean?
So being down means when you have been reduced to 0
Mm.
and you gain this condition called down. I will not go into what is it exactly. It's if you have played like other TTRPGs.
Yeah, you're unconscious. You
It's
know, you're crawling
basically
on the
the same.
floor. You're
Correct.
making death saving throws.
Yeah.
You know.
However, if you have this skill,
Yep.
you ignore all of that.
Yep.
You skip that. You just come out
Yep. You're just
effectively.
I stand up.
Correct. And if you use this, so the main point, I think this is the only change that we did to this skill, which is regain all your stamina. Previously, there wasn't this point, and it was a very awkward thing. So, I mean, just now we have mentioned, right, which is we have different type of turns in the scene. Rounds, yeah. Turns in
Different
the
turns in
round.
a round, yeah.
So, for stamina, right, because stamina is regained at the end of your turn.
Yep.
Correct. So it's a bit awkward if you stand up on, because when you go, so this is part of the condition of down, which is when you go down, your stamina is
stamina is 0.
0.
Yeah.
Correct.
You have no stamina while you are down.
Yeah. So if you use this on not your turn, you do not regain. So we had this issue in, I think, one of the playtests where
you stand up and then you have no stamina.
Yeah, and then it's like, and then you just look at the guy who is standing right in front of you, who just down you, and then
Which
you're
is
like,
down you.
shit, what do I do? You can't even run, correct?
Right.
Yeah. So I think this was something that we added, that we actually got from a playtest instead. Yeah, and because we forgot about that. Not say forget, but it kind of slipped our mind on that side. Yeah.
It's kind of like a legalese thing, you know. Like
it's
technically, yes, you don't do anything.
Yeah.
Right? And it's like that feels bad.
So I think we decided to add this in because like we at least give you like a chance in that sense where you can still effectively do something, right? Stuff like that. Yeah.
Right. So for a little bit of context as to why you must critically succeed a death roll, like what's the difference between succeeding a death roll and critically succeeding a death roll, right? So while you're down, when you succeed your death roll, you just stand up. Right, so you don't have to succeed 2, succeed 3, there's none of that, right? So in AoA, you fail twice, you die. You critically fail, you also die, right? Critically fail means you roll 2 once. Now, if you succeed, you stand up immediately, but you lose, you don't lose vitality, you gain a fatigue, right? And then if you critically succeed, you don't lose anything, you just stand up, right? You're fine. It's as if you succeeded in Dungeons and Dragons, right? So critically succeeding would be the same as succeeding your saving throws in Dungeons and Dragons. Now, the difference is that for this one, right, when you use the skill and you critically succeed, you also regain all your stamina, right? So there have been situations where, let's just say on your turn, you make your death roll, you fail, okay, now I can't fail one more time, right? So I'll use this skill. I just stand up and I take another turn, right? And I immediately just go after the guy, or I heal myself, or I do whatever, run away, right? So there's a potential here for you to maximize your stamina points and things like that, right? Of course, that's very like min-maxy and mechanical and tactical and stuff, but these are just potential options that you can have based on the type of wording and the legalese and the ruling of this whole thing, right? But the fantasy of it is what, like, you fall down and you be like, I want to stand up, right? You stand up and you just continue fighting, right? So that's the general fantasy of it.
It's also kind of tied to the hardy nature of humans.
The resilience,
sense.
yeah.
Yeah, the resilience and stuff like that. Yeah. So this was the skill that was like, it can be on any other races. So it's like, why is it on humans?
Yep.
So the reason why is just the resilience part. Yeah.
Yes. There's also like this nature of like humans are kind of like the main character. So so traditionally in all fantasy and media and whatnot, humans are generally the main guy, right? Like, and so how can you make humans, specifically humans, right?
Have the MC vibe.
Generally have the heroic vibe. And instead of skewing it into their masteries and whatnot, we have decided to choose and just placing the ratio. So this is something that potentially you could do a good stand. Potentially. I mean, you might still just die, right? Like, compared to healing before I got hit, like, which is better? Right?
Also, so just now I think I mentioned about how we only found this during a playtest, right? Also, the reason why, right, is because, right, we have multiple people who picked this, but they just never got down.
Oh yeah, that's also true.
So we didn't even get to test it until like when we actually went ham on like one of the sessions and we like or just whack the guy with everything we had, and then he finally down.
Yep.
And then he stand up and then he did nothing. And then we're like, oh, that's bad. That felt actually really bad. Yeah. I think that was how we actually found that weird interaction that this solved like effectively. Yeah. So that is the trade-off in that sense where if you took the day run, right, at least your heal is still reliable. You can use it.
You know exactly how much you'll get.
Right? You're not only that, but you're pretty reliable on like, okay, I can use this like every other day, right? This skill is like, oh, I can't. It might be a few bad skill where I can't use it most of the time, but when you can use it, damn, is it useful.
But one thing that's also interesting is that because you have this fail safe, right, you're also more likely to take risks, right? So you're not afraid of going down. Go down, stand up again, right? It's fine. Like, once a day I can stand up again, right? So there's always that option that drives human players to go for that more heroic action, right? Thus, Unbreakable Spirit. Okay. So let's move on to our fourth race, the claimants. All right.
The reason why you can't be less than 5 feet.
Yeah, the reason why you can't be less than 5 feet as a human, right? So the claimants are our equivalent of like a halfling, gnome, and a dwarf, all bashed into one, right? Goblins as well. So you can think of claimant as an overall umbrella for the short races of Chorinthia. Depending on where they're from, they take on the different features, and then they are generally all short, right? They're all 4 feet and below. Some are slightly taller, some are less tall, you know. We'll go through some of them that are taller later, right? And so they are diminutive yet indomitable race, right? Their short, rotund frames and their pointed ears are lending them to a deceptively childish-looking appearance. But they are also the longest living race in Chorinthia, right? Physically, they mature at 20 years old. Emotionally, they mature at 50 years old, right? And they can live well past 200. The exact age in which they die, not sure, right? I mean, it's not that we are not sure, but the world does not know, right? The world within Chorinthia is not sure. We know, right? And they only begin to start looking older at 150 and above. So if you see an old claimant, he's 150 and above, right?
At least.
Yes, at least. But they also take on a more relaxed outlook on life, in the sense that, oh, you know, there's time for these things, right? So they also tend to hyperfixate onto smaller things, right? Which we'll get into that. So culturally, the claimants have like a singular focus in life that can be a trade, it can be a field, it can be something, right? They usually have some kind of a focus in life, and this is known as their life's masterwork, right? So they pursue this goal with like an obsession, and they will, because they're so obsessed about it, right? They typically look down upon the other races in which they, or not even just the other races, even their own fellow claimants, they may look down upon them if they have a different outlook on that work and that industriousness and that hard work, right? So they don't like, generally they don't like lazy people. Size wise, they're 3 feet to 4 feet tall, right? And they weigh roughly 50 pounds, right? So that's like 25 kilos. 4 feet would be like 120 cm ish to like 90 cm roughly. And this is the first race where you have a small size, right? However, you still count as medium when attempting to knock back a creature, right? So there are many knockback effects within the combat system in which you are not allowed to knock back a creature which is more than one size larger than you. So if you're medium, you can only knock back up to large, and then you can't knock back huge, right? So as a claimant, you still count as medium, but then you are small, right? So there's some implications here, right? Your base movement speed is 25, and so that's 5 feet less than everybody else because your legs are short, right? And then your languages, you can speak, read, and write Common and Claimish. So Claimish is kind of like a crude, like dwarvish kind of traditionally dwarvish in the normal fantasy, like dwarvish style kind of writing. A lot of technical manuals are written in Claimish, but there is no magical tomes written in Claimish. So that's something that's kind of like a cultural aspect of the claimants, which is that they don't like spellcasters. It's not that they don't like actual magic itself. They don't like spellcasters. They think it's lazy, right? So there's like an aspect of like, oh, we work hard, we forge this thing, we do all this stuff, we craft all these things, and then you're casting magic over there. That's lazy, right? So there's that aspect of it, but of course not all claimants, right? So what are some of the implications of being a small race that you're playable?
So as a small creature,
yeah, you are a small creature, yes.
Is creature the correct? It's like it's a term. It's the term, correct? So as a small creature, you can there's certain interaction that you have. So like there might be things. So we have not went through this exactly, but mounting. So like on mounting a creature or like basically a creature lah.
Yep.
You can only mount something that is like one size small, larger than you. Yeah, correct. Which, if you think about the medians that we went through, the wolf, specifically the wolf that we actually shown, that was a medium creature.
Yep.
Right. So what that can lead up to is that as a claimant, because you are small, you could actually ride your wolf into combat.
Yep.
Which brings up a bit of the tactical stuff, right? Because we have showcased all the median skills, right? So a bit of like skip forward here will be like, oh, you can maybe attack and then like you attack and then the wolf will attack. And because you're on him, then it's like you are counted as like together.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. Yeah. So while you're mounting, you possess the same square on or position within a battlefield, right? And just with the masteries that we have already reviewed, right? So you can imagine like, oh, you could be a claimant who rides a wolf, maybe he's holding a bow, and then your wolf is running around, and then you're shooting things, or maybe you're like riding a cat bear, and then you have like a sword in hand, right? And you're both going and you're slashing, and the cat bear is slashing and stuff like that, right? So these are things that are only possible currently. Straight out of the bat, right? Like you don't have to buy a horse or anything, you don't have to buy a beast or any mount, right? You can do this right out of the bat as a claimant, only as a claimant. So this is kind of like a tactical advantage that you get specifically for being small, but you pay for it with 5 feet of movement, which is this adds up because you move a lot in AoA, right?
So it's a bit of a hidden surprise thing, but if you play as a claimant during the campaign, you actually get something bonus. This we will 100% not say at all, but this is the maximum that we will say, which is you get a nice surprise.
Yes.
Yeah, as a claimant.
Yes.
Yeah, specifically. Yeah. So when the set comes out, you can try it lah.
Yeah. So you can pay attention to that. Look out for it. All right. So let's get on to the sub races. Right. So the sub races for claimants are Ironforge and the Frostbanes. Right. So these are dependent on where the claimants have chosen to basically suffer, right? Because claimants are they're small and they live very long, so they're going to struggle no matter where they go, like whichever environment they're at, like your jungle, trees too tall, mountains, whatever, caves and all this stuff, right? So wherever they have chosen to forge their base and like strangle and wrangle the environments to fit their beings, right? They have adapted to these locations. And a lot of these things are also in line with the type of pursuit that a claimant might have. So we'll get into that later. So that one will be the specific subrace already. But these type of communities also lead towards like a meritocratic society. So these general claimant communities, they look towards people who they contribute greatly to their community based on their masterworks, and they are like things like smithing, creating machineries, alchemy and stuff like that. So the more they contribute, then the other claimants look upon them and they're like, yeah, that's great, all right, like you are ups because you contribute a lot of your
model citizen.
Yes, you're a model citizen, right? Your meritocracy, yes. Singapore. All right. So the two subraces that are most commonly found in the Thundersteps are the Frostwing claimants and the Eisenforge claimants, right? So the Frostwing claimants are because they're just north of the Thundersteps, the Thundersteps on the map that was provided inside the basic set. You can see that on the map itself. The Eisenforge are a little bit further, but because generally a lot of the Eisenforge claimants are blacksmiths and miners, they travel a lot, right? So let's take a look at the Eisenforge, right? So they come from the Iron Ridge volcanoes of Keldrut. This is in western Chorinthia. This is like far west. It's off the map, right? Many of them are blacksmiths, craftsmen, and miners because they are in a volcanic area. The heat there is really good for them, and it's also a mountainous region. So this has allowed them to pursue all of their what do you call that?
Life goal.
Yeah. Basically their life goals, right? Their masterworks in crafting and creating all kinds of mechanical machineries and stuff like that. Yes, machineries exist, right? They have a cultural disdain for laziness when it comes to physical labor. So it's okay if you're not smart, you're not talented or whatnot, but if you're physically lazy, these guys hate you, right? Because they are working really hard themselves, right? They are mining, they are smithing. Like, it's a very physical, laborious thing, right? So you might also find that they are a bit more slender compared to the other claimants, right? And they're also taller, right? So they have long pointed ears. Their ears are typically like singed depending on where they're from. Their skin is bronze, gray, or ivory from the heat and from their location. Their hair tends towards like metallic or dark earthen kind of colors. This is it's kind of like a result of just blending into the environment to avoid the other larger monsters in their region. And then their eyes are red, hazel, amber, and gray. Right. So Ironforge claimant are slightly taller. Right. So when I say slightly taller, they're like 120 cm. Right. And the other claimants will be like 110, 100. Right. So they're on the higher end of the 4 feet, and then the rest are on the lower end of the 4 feet to 3 feet. Right. So they're all a little bit bigger. Right. So moving on from that, we go to the Frostvein guys. So Frostvein guys are they're from the tundras, right? So you can think of this as like the Viking equivalents, the Nords, the Nordic style kind of thing, right? And these guys have now, as to why they have chosen the North for survival, I'll leave that story for another day. But they have chosen the North for their survival, right? And traditions of like survival and resilience and the drive for like technological improvements, right, were born out of necessity to survive in this North, right? So they typically live in the mountainous regions within the North. So if you're familiar with like dwarves in World of Warcraft, stuff like that, right? So these are dwarves who live in the mountains. Now, whether they are volcanoes inside, different story, right? They are more like Nordic dwarves, yes, but in the less volcanic sense.
Viking dwarves.
Yeah, Viking dwarves, yes. Right. So most adventuring claimants, right, and scientists are Frostvein claimants who have left their cold lands for literally greener pastures, right? Because it's really cold there, they don't want to stay there. But because of their culture and their heritage and a history, they have decided to generally form a society there, right? So physically, their noses are slightly upturned. Their ears are much shorter, cause in the cold, it might break, right? And then they have skin that is pale white. The pink, the flush shows through their skin often. Their hair is usually white, brown, red, or blonde, and their eyes are blue, green, black, purple. There's quite a wide range of colors for the Frostwing claimants, right? So most of the features that you might find in your traditional Nordic country, your Viking countries, these are things that might be visible within these races, right? So, what about their racial skills?
For their racial skills,
I use Tenacious Soul.
So their racial skills are a bit more tenacious.
They're both passive.
They're both
they're
passive
both
also,
passive,
so
yeah.
they're a bit less maintenance heavy in that sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. So going to it, so they have two skills. One is Claimant Fortitude and the other is Tenacious Soul. So the one we are showing is Tenacious Soul, which is both is passive, yeah. So the it's a Claimant skill, Glacier. SP cost is hyphen because it's a passive.
It's a passive, yeah.
Claimant requires to be Claimant, and the cost is 1. Right. So what is it? So it's actually when you fail a challenge, you gain an advantage on the next challenge with the same attribute.
Yep.
So what does that mean? So this can happen in combat as well, right? So for example, in combat, right, let's say like you do a saving throw, and the saving throw that you initially use, right, is like, for example, Dex, right? So that was your chosen attribute to go for, and somehow you fail. Correct. So the next time you have to do a Dex saving throw, you instead gain an advantage. Right? So this means, just to refresh again, this means you roll an additional D6 and you take the 2 highest. Yeah. So pretty simple, pretty straightforward.
Yeah. In a sense, you can think about this as a claimant have a higher floor. So when because they're short, right? So when they fail something, they have a chance to the next time they try it again, they're like sore losers, like they don't want to lose again. So they get an advantage on this. Right. So they get additional dice that just helps them to, succeed a little bit better. Right. Does this continue to stack? Yes, it does. Right. So if you keep failing it, then you're more likely to succeed at the end of the day. Right.
Somehow, one way or another, you will succeed.
One way or another, your tenacious ass is gonna win. Right. So it's a tenacious soul.
So the example that I use, right, is actually in combat, but what happens if you're doing a roleplay scenario? This means you might be able to haggle the person down to like 1 goal.
Yeah. Of course, like when it comes to those kind of situations, if your game master chooses like no means no, then okay, you stop there. But that doesn't mean that your debuff, your
it carries over to the next.
So like your character, your claimant is gonna be like, okay, I failed to haggle this guy, right? The next time I'm gonna haggle someone, I'm gonna haggle like double down immediately. Right? So you go to the next challenge of the same role immediately with advantage. Right? So you can kind of think about this as like these guys are persistent and they're annoying and they refuse to lose. They just want their way, That's the kind of
the other way you can see is also, right, for example, if they visit a marketplace, they will just keep failing consistently until somehow they get it right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Right. Something like that. So that is like the whole like design aspect of this particular skill is to reflect like how bad of a sore loser they are in that sense. Yeah.
So you can think about this as this is a reflective of their culture, right? So these passives are both the claimant passives are more reflective of their behavior and cultures compared to the other races. The other races still, of course, they do, right? But it's a lot more of a physical aspect. Whereas this one talks more about their personality as a race.
Their mental fortitude in that sense. Yeah.
So they are really sore losers. And the claimant fortitude one, well, I'll leave it at that, right?
That's also a fun one, actually.
Yeah, there's some potential things you can do. But generally, they will lead you to play more like if you take full advantage of the ratios, you will naturally play more like a claimant within the War of Chorinthia. Right? And that is one of the goals of the ratios, right?
Yep.
Like these are things that we want that promote the gameplay of it's like a ludonarrative kind of like mechanic.
In that sense, it's actually it has a similar aspect to like the weapon mastery stuff, where it actually leans in a lot into like the specific types of things that we are trying to like
encourage,
stuff like that.
Okay, so next one is the next race and the last race, the Viennans. So this is the weirdest of our 5 races.
The other weird one.
Yeah. This is the.
This is the weirdest one. Yeah.
I guess if you're familiar with Asian games, like you might be familiar with things like Arknights.
Yeah.
Yes, it's similar only visually.
And
right?
we only found it out like
way
after.
Yeah, we really realized it
Yeah.
after, right? So, but visually is the similarities and stops at the skin level, right? So the Viennans are okay. These are basically bird people, right? So amongst the mist shrouded peaks of Sakuji, right? It's the eastern continents. So this is your traditional, your eastern influence kind of a continents. Your Chinese, your Japanese, your Korean, your Mongolia, Asia. You know, lies the bountiful cities of the Raeburn Empire, right? So these guys are part of the empire, right? Where bird-like Viennans dwell. These Viennans train throughout their short lives in martial arts based on their clans, right, forming the greatest military force of Chorinthia, right? So the Viennans are is a martial race, yeah, and all of them are martially trained from young. Does that mean that all of them have martial masteries? No. Right? But in a roleplay setting and lore-wise, their families and their clans are all martially trained, and they want to pass on their teachings and whatnot to the next race, next generation, not race, next generation. They definitely don't teach it to the other races. Yeah. Because one thing that you have to consider is that these things are designed for the Viennan body, and you'll find out why that's different in a moment, right? So Viennans don't live very long. They are the most short-lived race in all of Chorinthia. Traditionally, we don't, like in TTRPGs, races usually live longer and longer, but Viennans, we try to cut them shorter and shorter, right? Because they are
initially, I remember when we first initially talked about the ages, I think they were supposed to be 80. And they were like, a bit too much. And then we were like, okay, let's try 60. And then 60. And then we were like, I think at one point we were like, why not 40?
Yeah, I mean,
then we're like, wait, 40 is too much.
40 is like, oh, you know, like I just became an
I have fought in the army for 20 years and then I die.
Like if you're a Spartan and you're like 40, you just die of old age. Not even of fighting, right? So Viennans live up to 60 and then they mature at 12 years old. So they grow up much faster. They reach full size at 12 years old, and then they are emotionally and physically mature, right? But they also die much faster. They age much faster, right? So you can see Viennans like burning through the energy of their life. And culturally, they hold their clan's values and honor in very high regard. So all the Viennans are very much so like a familial kind of like clan focused race, right? They also have a culture of practicing martial arts as part of their society, and that's dependent on the clan, right? What clans? We'll get to that. So size 5 to 6 feet. They are the normal range, but they weigh half as much as a human of the same height, right? That ties us down to the last point, but we'll get to that. So speed wise, 30 feet of movement. Languages you can speak, read, write Common and Viennan. So Viennan is in a very similar form to Elvish. There's a lot of writing about it, but one of the biggest differences between Viennan and other languages is that the Vienna language is typically used for calligraphy, right? So you might, if you're familiar with our real life calligraphy, like Chinese and Japanese, similar thing, right? And now, this is the only race that has an additional trait based on their weight, right? Their feather fall, which is that fall damage you take, right, is halved. And you do not take fall damage from a fall equal to or lower than your jump height. So if you, for some reason, you can jump really high, falling down that same height does not deal any damage to you, right? And if you were to fall from a higher height, you take half damage. This is purely because of your weight, right? So this is the only direct how do I say,
baseline.
baseline advantage that a race can have.
So a bit of background on this was that this used to be a Vienna trait.
Yes.
Actually,
yes.
Vienna mastery.
Vienna racial skill.
Yeah, racial skill. Right. So I think we moved it here because it fitted more similar to it being a trait than more of like a mastery where you have to use it. And previously it wasn't used, it was also a passive skill. Yeah. So we were like, it felt better if it was part of the baseline. Yeah.
Because what ended up happening is that we would just put this into all of the racial skill designs, and then it's like, okay, there's this additional line that's always there. So we just put it inside the traits now. Right. So this is the only race that has an additional line you have to write if you were to record everything onto your character sheets. Yeah.
But it's still the same where this is still more of a utility thing. Yeah, it's not really like game breaking. Not say game breaking, but like balance breaking, or like it's a big consideration when you're creating a character or creating envisioning a spread of like skills that you want to use. It's still isn't a main consideration point here.
Yep.
Yeah, so it's still part of like it's still in line with our philosophy yeah.
So the in the sense that the trait should not overly impact your choice of mastery and classes and whatnot.
I would so forever is like I would still not pick Vienna just for the featherfall. Like I would pick Vienna for like maybe one of the passive that we might talk about.
One of the
traits,
ratios,
the ratios that we'll talk about later. Yeah. Like it's a bonus to have. Yeah.
Yeah, so you can compare this to the fact that claimants can mount medium creatures, but that's by nature of them being small. Right.
Like, but will we see more of this in the future? Maybe not. We shall see.
Let us know what you think.
Yeah.
Right.
Maybe this is more fitting to a sub race, stuff like that. Yeah.
Okay, so let's move on to the sub races. Right. So the Viennans are a matriarchal society. And they have like this Spartan-like kind of like martial fervor and how do I say? Like if you're familiar with like Spartan societies, like they take out kids from a very young age and then they train them to become like an army, right? So you can think about it in the same way, where from young all the Viennans are trained like Shaolin monks, right? And based on their clans, they're trained in different ways. So these clans, right, are tied to sacred birds. And within the Reba Empire, which is where a majority of the Viennans are, you have the crane, the phoenix, the sparrow, the nightingale, and the raven, right? And so each clan hones combat styles based on these birds, right? And they'll kind of like imitate, like for example, the crane, they imitate like the grace of a crane and whatnot, right? And so on top of the fact that they are learning from the bird, the members of these clans are also like their bird features are also from that bird, right? And so in the basic set, we have two clans available. You have the sparrow and the raven, right? So sparrows on the left, ravens on the right.
So just to be a bit clear, clans for Viennas are actually just sub races.
Yeah, they're just sub races.
So it's a different term that we are using for Vienna especially because it's very intertwined with like their whole lore and
their
background.
culture and stuff.
So just to be very clear about it, clans are actually equal to sub race. There's no difference here.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lore tie-in.
There's a lore tie-in, but
technically,
in terms of,
if you just chose like a sparrow Vienna, it just means that your Vienna has features of the sparrow, right? And if they are a devout member of their clan, then they would have all of the features and whatnot of the sparrow, right? So sparrow, right? So a sparrow Viennan is a descendant of the sparrow clan, right? They possess the bird elements that mimic that of a sparrow, whilst embodying the virtues of loyalty and hope, right? Which are like the values of a sparrow. So they are known to travel the most, purely out of wanderlust and romance of adventure, right? So like they love this concept, this idea of like, oh, I fly everywhere. I go, oh, this thing is here, this thing's cool, this thing's there, and they go there, right? So there's that kind of like happy-go-lucky aspect to your average sparrow Viennan, right? Of course, they still embody a lot of that kind of like martial discipline that comes from their training as well, though, right? So physically, sparrows have like the sparrow Viennans have sparrow-like wings sprouting where their ears should be. So Viennans don't have ears; they have the wings instead, right? And there are holes like inside there, and then they can hear based on the sounds, right? Which also means you can kind of like cover your ears with your wings. The wings can move, right? And they have a sleek brown and black feathers with white tips, right? The white tips are not super obvious in that picture, but they are there. Their skin can range from a fair white skin to a tanner brown skin, and their hair tends towards white, brown, and black, right? Their eyes are grey, brown, green, and black, right? So the we won't go into the details of water clans because then it's like an entire lore thing. But sparrow clans, most of the members they look like sparrows, right? So that's the high level look at it, right? And then we have the Raven clan, right? So the Raven Vienna, they are descendants of the Raven clan. They have features of a raven, right? They embody the values of cunning and ferocity, right? And they are okay. So a bit of a law for this one, right? So they are generally in Chorinthia feared because the empress of the empire is usually from the Raven clan, right? Usually being the past few generations have all been from the Raven clan, right? So there's this kind of like, oh, this is the royal bird clan. So the Raven Viennans have glossy black feathered wings instead of ears, and they are a little bit more sensitive to sound. Most of them have like black nails, right? And they are a bit claw-like. They're not like talons, right? But they're a little bit sharper, right? If you've seen the archery review, that character is a Raven Vienna, and if you see on the cover art for the box, there's also a Raven Vienna over there, and if you look at them, they look kind of similar, right? Because there's a relation. Their skin is typically a pale white or glossy kind of like grayish skin with a bluish undertone, right? The hair tends towards white, black, and blue. When we say blue here, the blue is like kind of like blue under the light, not literally blue, right? It's only
we're
blue
not talking
in the
about like
art.
sky blue.
Yeah, we're not talking
or
about like light blues,
Yeah.
right? These are dark kind of like glossy iridescent blues, right? And their eyes are silver, red, purple, and black, right? You can imagine them as like a human version of a raven. Right? They're kind of broody, they're serious and all, and they're fierce, quite sharp, right? So if I had to choose a race as someone who wants to create an emo character, a Raven Vienna is definitely the race. Right? You want like the most emo My Chemical Romance, or like Bullets for Your Valentine or whatever, right? Like that's where you go. Yeah. If you want like heavy metal, go play a Eisenforge Claimant, right? Okay, and so racial skills.
We took the okay. So
Yeah.
same. Two skills. We have Evian Ascent and Shifting Feathers. So Shifting Feather is the one that we're reviewing today. So it's a react and Vienna tag. So react for a bit of what's the word called again? Refresher is it's a reaction skill. So it's similar to like in D&D your what's that thing called again?
Opportunity attack.
Opportunity attack. Yeah. So it's similar in that it's a skill that you use when something happens. Correct. So for the case of this shifting feather, right? The what you're reacting to is actually when you are being hit by a strike or blast. Quite specifically a dex blast. So you can use this skill and you avoid it.
Yep.
So what it means, right, is avoiding means you don't need to roll if you are rolling a blast, or for a strike you just ignore it.
In this case, the roll already happened.
The roll already happened.
Already failed.
Yes, yeah.
You already failed, and now you choose to succeed.
Because it is when you are hit.
Yes, you're hit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not whether like, oh, I can preemptively use this skill to ignore it, but rather it's more of like you have already been hit. What do I do now? So you can use this skill and negate it in that sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So you can think of this kind of like these guys are so trained in their martial arts that they have like this reactionary like kind of like lightning flash reflexes if you're familiar with like Bruce Lee and things like that, right? So when they move and then the feather feels in it, they dodge the attack, right? So it's that kind of logic behind it. Right?
So the one key thing also is that this is also once a day.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is
So
once a day.
similar to quite a few other skills that
racial
we have.
stuff,
Yeah. So most racial stuff is where you see once a day being used. Not so often in like the mastery side, but quite often or more often than not, it's once a day for racials. Yeah.
Yeah. Reasoning, as we mentioned before, we don't want racials to overpower your decision of what mastery you're playing. Right.
It's supposed to be a utility tool that you use that you see that you have, and then it's like, oh, we could use it now, stuff like that. Yeah.
Do they stay in place after using shifting feathers? Yes, they do. You can you can duck and weave, like if you're boxing, you can just kind of dodge the attack. Right. So I don't know how you're gonna dodge a fireball by weaving lah, but you can do that as well. So
You
fireball
jump.
comes in, you just
you jump,
you disappear, right? And then you land back on the same spot,
Mm.
right? So the one where you can actually move comes from a different mastery and a different skill, which we are not going to cover today. But one day,
Stay tuned.
yeah, we'll think about that. Stay tuned for our upcoming Tiny Table Talks, where we'll talk about all the different skills and, well, not all of them, but we will cover a decent amount of them before the actual Kickstarter campaign. All right. So, is there anything else you want to add here?
I mean, we have mentioned this is one of the weirdest race we had, but I think this is also one of the races we had quite an early discussion on how it actually will showcase, like how do we actually put like bird stuff into humans.
Yeah.
Correct. So it's this was one of the more, not saying more, but this was an interesting take on that idea lah. And I mean, okay, for all the races that we have reviewed, right, and that we have, they were basically the same thing as it is from the very start. So we had no change to it. Even the skills, the races that you see, right, some of it is still the original wording. A bit is like maybe, so for example, like the elf one, it was the exact same wording, just that maybe last time we didn't have terrestrial. We didn't
use like magic damage.
We just said magic, or like no, we said this set of damage. We did, and then it was only after all that, oh, this is getting too long. So
we started adding more and more damage types. So
we are like, okay, let's combine them into like a single tag that is more readable. For players when they see this, oh, they can immediately link what is this. Like, so if you say terrestrial, okay, they know what is it, correct? It's immediate, correct? And instead of like I list all the things, and then it slowly becomes a whole paragraph. Right? So I think these were the only small changes that we had, and at the very most is like once a day. Once a day being
being a limit.
There being a limit. So some of it didn't have a limit at the start, and it was interfering with my core design of the game being not interrupt heavy.
Not centered. Not just not interrupt heavy, but also not centered around your race. Like when your ratios become like more than half your actions, that's too much.
And also it's like because, so I have said this before, which is the reason why we had the turns, like staminas and turns, and there's no like initiative stuff. Not saying no initiative, sorry, but no
there's no individual
order. There's no individual player order, stuff like that. Is because, right, we wanted things to flow. Correct. And having no limits on like certain skills for the racial stuff, it gets kind of messy. So that's why I said you see more often than not, quite a few racial skills will have once a day skills. But in return, right, in exchange, sorry, they get a bit powerful, correct? So stuff like, oh, you get hit and you just ignore it, or you heal for free, or you get back up, right? Stuff like that.
There's a bit of a trade-off. It's a bit more impactful, right? Of course, the passive ones are still passive, right? They're still good, but they're not.
The passive are still decent, though.
Correct. But they are usually not something that you actively go out of your way to
invoke it.
Like force it in, right?
Like I wouldn't Okay, you could do it, but like it won't be a normal thing to like, oh, I will purposely fail. So for taking the Clement one, I wouldn't fail this thing 5 times in a row, and then the sixth time I go and do something else.
Yep,
right?
yep.
Like, yeah, you could do that, but that's a very
I mean,
meta approach.
statistically, you're probably
Yeah.
not going to be able to do that as well.
Yeah,
Because you're probably going to roll something and succeed.
Correct.
Yeah.
You're probably going to succeed in the second time.
Yeah.
Or maybe the third time. Because it's like, at that point,
your
you're
advantage
rolling,
is
like,
stacked.
yeah.
Right.
Correct.
So odds are you're not going to fail. And if you try an impossible task, you shouldn't be rolling in the first place.
Correct.
So that's not, not viable.
Yeah. So I think that is a very quick summary on like the philosophy of like races and stuff like that, as well as like I think on the art side, like how visually they are, and the law, as well as like what are the implications and stuff like that. Yeah.
Okay, and so with that, we are now back to the very first slide, and now we've covered all the different races of Chorinthia. So you might be thinking, what about half races? Right, they're half elves and half this, half that. So we're not gonna have dedicated races for half races. If you're half human, half Darren, half Clement, half elf, those things, right? Instead of having a dedicated race to them, what we have instead is there's a multi-racing system. Multi-racing, I don't know that's weird. Multi-racial system, right? So when you choose a character, when you create a character, you have you have two parents, right? You have male and female, right? And then based on your lineage, you get ancestries. So if both your parents are Clement, then you have a Clement ancestry. But if, for example, one of your parents is a elf and then the other one is a human, then now you have human and elven ancestry, right? So what does this mean? This means that, right, if let me just show you again. So you might notice that under requirements, under masteries, it says VNN ancestry, right? And requirements is the VNN race. So what this means is that you count as both. You count as both. In that case, it was an elf and a human. You count as both elf and human, but you only have one racial point until you're at a higher level, right? So at the start, mechanically, it's almost the same, right? However, at higher levels, you may have a situation where, I have one human ratio here and one elven ratio there, right? And that's where multi-racing is currently sitting, right? And then this also means that as we release more and more races, there are more and more combinations that could happen, but only at a higher level. So at a lower level, picking multiple races is simply cosmetic to play.
Also to add in a bit, right? As we release more races, right? Because when we release more, I mean in the future we release more stuff lah, right? We will go beyond level 0.
Yeah.
Correct. So in the future you might have a requirement. Then that will bring into a choice of do I still how do we do multi-race, right? Because racial points are actually the most restrictive in that sense. Points to earn. Yeah.
So you can think about them as like, there's now an elf skill that actually requires me to already have an elven skill, right? So you are now a super elf, right?
Correct.
So if you're a half elf, you will never be a super elf, right?
Maybe
you could be a super elf if you put both your points in the elf, but if you decided to choose one elf, one human, then you will never pick a super elf skill, right? Or you can't pick like one human skill and then the next rank elven skill because you need to have spent 1 point in the previous one, right? So those are some considerations for future designs and other racial skills in general.
So also to add in a bit, right? You can't unspec.
Oh yeah.
So a bit of refresher here is that for mastery side, for the martial magic as well as like the special ones, right?
Yeah.
You can respec.
Yes.
That means that you can reduce the points invested, but you can't do that for race, right?
Yeah.
So this actually brings a lot of planning to the forefront here. For races, correct?
Yeah. So you can't pick a racial skill and then swap it at a later time. No, this racial skill is now with you for the rest of your character's life.
And this is very intentionally done. Yeah, because we wanted to have like impactful character designs, stuff like that. Yeah. So and how to do that is that we have racials being like kind of a cornerstone. And that's also the reason why we did not allow like rules as written, we do not allow it to be a thing. Yeah.
Yep. And so with that, we have come to the end of today's episode, where we have covered the races of Chorinthia. Right. So pre-launch page for the Kickstarter is already live. The link is below in the descriptions. You can join all of our social media. We have a Facebook group and a Discord channel as well. So feel free to join that. Right. We'll give updates on there as well as on X. Instagram less so, but we will use it through stories. Right. So if you want all of the news, it's on Facebook and Discord and on X. Right. And of course, all the videos are here. Right. So subscribe and hit that bell for the follow. Right. And with that, we have come to the end of the ninth episode of Tiny Table Talk. Right. So these are all the races. I am John.
I'm Dayang.
And we're signing out.